Hello, this is Chuck Turner. We're calling the June 18th meeting of the Mount Juliet Regional Municipal and Regional Planning Commission to order. Like I mentioned, I'm Chuck Turner. I'm the vice chairman. And Luke Winchester, the chairman, is out tonight. His son has graduated from high school, Mount Juliet High School. So want to congratulate him and his son Noah on graduating from high school tonight. Probably over 500 seniors graduated at Mount Juliet High School. And then tomorrow at West Central, we'll have another several hundred graduating. So I want to say congratulations to all the seniors from high school at our two great high schools here in Mount Juliet. So thank you for attending. So the first thing I'd like to do is to set the agenda. That's the first order of business. But before I do that, since we're missing Luke and Mr. Searcy, I'd like to read about the quorum. So the presence of 5 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, wait up to 30 minutes after the scheduled meeting time for a quorum to be present. In the event that a member is required to leave a meeting prior to adjournment and the departure causes a loss of quorum, no further official action may be taken until a quorum is restored other than adjournment. A majority vote of those commissioners present, and in no case less than 4 affirmative votes, shall be required to decide any item of business requiring action by the committee. So I want to read about that. Also want to talk about the COVID-19 requirements here tonight. This is from social distancing guidelines will be followed here at all times. Limitations on the number of persons in the meeting room will be maintained. The meeting may be viewed on Comcast Channel 3, TDS Channel 6, and live stream from the city's website, which is www.mountjuliet-tn.gov. Also, public comments on any agenda item or general comments can be made at www.mountjulietcityn@iqm.com/citizens or by emailing our secretary, Jill Johnson, at jill.johnson@mountjuliet-tn.gov or calling our Planning Commission office at 615-773-6283. No later than 3 p.m. on Thursday. This is going to be for this Planning Commission, which will be June the 18th. Please include your name and address. But this also goes for next month. And so if you can, again, use these email addresses and telephone numbers no later than 3 p.m. on July the 16th. And again, please include your name and telephone numbers. So the first order of business is to set the agenda. Do I see any changes or amendments to the agenda besides the deferral of item 5.3, which is the FMDP site plan for Lebanon Road mixed-use development mass grading has been deferred prior to this meeting at the request of the applicant. Again, this is item 5.3. Are there any other changes, amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, I will set the agenda as stated. So next will be staff reports. Ms. Hamlin?
Thanks. It's good to see you guys tonight. Jill, I wanted to make a note that Jill has passed out to you guys 2 citizen comments that we received on email and also a copy of our PC bylaws. We thought that since this would be considered the annual meeting, that it would be a good time to give you guys something really boring to read. So have fun with that. I also like to announce that John was named Employee of the Month for April. So we'd like to congratulate him and thank him for his service to the city.
Congratulations, John.
I know, very well deserved. I'd also like to say happy Father's Day to you fathers out there, especially mine. And lastly, I would like to take a second to thank our officers. They came out and volunteer to be here to make sure that we're protected during these meetings. So I'd like to thank them for that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Hamlin.
you.
Mr. Barlow?
Certainly. Give a little bit of public works and then some project-related updates. So we have officially finished our cleanup from the tornado for public
Thank you.
works. We had a contractor that we had that was on that project. They've completed their work, and all the debris has now been taken to final disposal. So sure, people probably curious. Total cost right now to the city is a little over $1.4 million. I believe it's a little bit, we might have some extra oversight charges on that as well, but generally we're around that amount. That is a lot reimbursable from FEMA. I've heard that there's some varying amounts, but up to 75%, another 12.5% from the state as well. So those are all great things to actually get that finished and out of the way. I know I've talked with many residents who were extremely happy to see that debris removed and to begin this new chapter of our lives here. Also, storm related, May 3rd storm. I'm sure people may be curious. We're about to finish our first pass through the city cleaning that up. It's a pretty impressive debris pile as well from that. And we're just taking vegetation. So on that, we should be finishing that up. I'm sure there's probably some other material out there that we'll have to get on our second pass. So just be patient with us as we move through that. Last is projects. We're nearing completion on Town Center Trail. It's, if anybody's gone out there, I know we've had a lot of people using it. If you do use it, remember that project is not completed. So if you do get on there, it's at your own risk. We do have a couple other projects that have been substantially completed, and those are basically two projects in one on the LZ Patton, Safe Routes to School, and Woodridge Place. Those are substantially completed, as is the Belinda Parkway sidewalks project. So it's great to see a lot of those grants that we've received over the years really starting to come to completion. And I hope to, and maybe in the next month to 2 months, have some better concrete start times on when the bridge widening over the interstate is going to start to take place. So but we're progressing along on that project as well. So very excited to see that one. I know the bike bed stuff is great for livability, but I know everybody clamors for that increased amount of capacity that we can obtain on our roadways in those key locations. So hope to have some more news on that later. That's all for me.
Do we have an estimated time of completion for the Lebanon Road sidewalk project?
Yes, that's a good question. I believe it's probably, let me check and see. That is going to be in January, I believe. January of 2021. Very good.
I always forget. Do you mind to do an update real quick on the RTA parking?
That one I'm not as in tune on. I know just from their phasing and their schedule, I believe they have until the early part of next year. I think maybe January, February, March, something like that. I think they have roughly a year, but I think that's their anticipated time frame. Should be able to start to see some areas of that parking opened up later this summer. Along with that, we will have some roadway widening that's part of the Station North project on East Division Street as well. So you'll start to see that work taking place hopefully here in the next month or so. So there's a lot of work that's happening on that corner and in that area.
Thank you. I always forget that.
Mr. Bowman, I'm sorry I missed you. Do you have any comments? Okay, very good then.
Can I ask Mr. Barlow one question?
Certainly.
Who is going to be responsible, when do you think they'll get around to moving the broke off and cut off utility poles on Mount Juliet Road?
That's a good question. I noticed that myself last week. There are, in one location, I think there's 2 old poles. And that is going to be up to Middle Tennessee Electric, I believe. I can check with our contact there to see. I know that we did have some excess material there from the storm. They got that cleaned up, I think, last month. But as far as the remaining poles that are stuck up and broken off, I think those are still remaining to be done. I'll check with them on the timeline.
Thank you.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes, Bobby?
Yeah, I have a question about this project up there on Golden Bear, where they look like they put in the new poles there to do the turning lane. Do you know when that's gonna be a road project? Do you have any timeline on that? Because that might disrupt that.
You're talking about what's being done as part of the Amazon project?
Right
Yes.
there where they put the new poles up there. I guess they're gonna take the other ones.
Correct, yeah, that's right. Though, the timeline that I've been given on that is that they want to have as much of the road work done this calendar year as possible. They have to have it done before they open at least that area right in front of where their building is for the turn lanes and everything, access to their site. So I'm going to expect that they're probably gonna have that done probably September, October.
Quick.
Very quick.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to now call for citizen comments. Citizens are encouraged and welcome to speak either now or at the time that the agenda item is on the agenda. When you come up to the agenda, to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, and you're limited to 3 minutes. And again, you can only speak one time, either now or when your agenda item is on being reviewed.
Jennifer Mullally, 217 Sunny Acre Drive, and I could do it now or then when it comes up, so I might as well just do it then. I'm here to show my support for the Cawthorn development. I've been seeing this come through the different stages, and it's made a lot of improvements. I do like where they increased the lot size. I do like that they finally included the swimming pool. I know that's a big issue always. I just think overall it's a nice development, and I'm here to show my support for it and hope you can take it into consideration. And I trust that the variances will be worked out with staff because that's what they do, not me. So that'll be worked out. So I trust that. But basically here to say I like the development. I hope you consider passing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other citizen comments? Well, seeing none, I'd like to read the 2 emails or excerpts of the emails that were sent in. One from Catherine Ruby concerning Catherine Farms. Basically, she is against the development. There are some concerns with the water services and power grid, and looks like some of the congestion. Secondly, concerning Bradshaw Farms, citizen comment, this was Jackson Gallagher, and put a nice summary. He was concerned the sidewalk and the crosswalk. Please put the crosswalk in a logical location. Please scrap the outbound bike trail, and please require concrete construction with a pedestrian refuge island. I believe that he might have talked to Mr. Barlow about this. Those are the citizen comments. So next on the agenda, after citizen comments, we'll go to minutes approval. And so this will be from the Planning Commission, the regular meeting on May 21st, 2020. Are there any additions, deletions? Mr. Franklin?
Yeah, on page 13, item number 6.1 shows a negative recommendation of a 4-3 vote, and then it shows negative recommendation unanimous.
Yeah.
Don't think it could be both, so probably I'll fix that.
What page is that again?
13.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
What is that?
Did you have anything?
Yes. On page 3, the second from the last paragraph, they're talking about the Dollar General that's on Lebanon Road. It said Chuck Turner inquired about the aesthetics from Mount Juliet Road. That should be Lebanon Road. If you can see that Dollar General from Mount Juliet Road, we've got other issues.
Very good, thank you. So are there any other questions, typos, amendments? Okay. At this point, I'd like to make a motion on the minutes from last month.
Motion to approve correction.
Okay. Second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. So next we'll go to the consent agenda. And again, item 5.3 has been deferred. So first, item 5.1, Beckwith Crossing Phase 1 Development Letter of Credit, SYND 69366643-711 in the amount of $232,918.26 can be released. Item 5.2, review the final plat for Stewart's Landing, Phase 1, located on the corner of South Mount Juliet Road and Stewart's Ferry Pike. Item 5.4, this is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissions. Review the annexation of Landmark Homes located at 6020 Central Pike. 5.5, again, this is a recommendation back to the Board of Commission. Review the plan of services for Landmark Homes located at 6020 Central Pike. And 5.6, again, recommendation item. Review the rezone request for Landmark Homes located at 6020 Central Pike. So, staff, do you have any comments on these?
Staff recommends approval or positive recommendation for the items with conditions listed.
Okay. Mr. Barlow?
Nothing else?
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, I got to I have a public hearing first. Okay. Any other questions or things from the commission? Okay. At this point, I'd like to close the planning commission and open up a public hearing. The public hearing is to review let's see,
It's 5.2.
5.2. Thank you. It's to review 5.2. Review the final plat for Stewart's Landing, Phase 1, located on the corner of South Mount Juliet Road and 11 Stewart's Ferry Pike. Excuse me. And so I want to see if there's any citizen comments during our public hearing. I see no citizen comments. At this point, we will close our public hearing and reopen our planning commission. At this point, we'd like to have a motion on the consent agenda. Mr. Franklin? Okay, second by Mr. Floyd. Thank you. So all in favor of this, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Abstentions? So approved. So the next item on our agenda is item 6, the annexation plan of services preliminary master development plan, PUD. So are there any objections to hearing 6.1, review the annexation of Catherine Farms located on South Rutland Road, and 6.2 together, which is the plan of services? I see no objections, so we will hear 6.1 and 6.2 together. So, Mr. Bowman?
Okay, thank you. So
We're just
for
gonna be hearing about
regarding the annexation, it is within the growth boundary, and its future land use classification is medium density. The base zoning that they are requesting as part of this is RS15, which is it aligns with the medium density residential requirement for the future land use map, and pretty straightforward as far as the annexation goes. So that's all the comments
Okay.
on the annexation.
Mr. Barlow, do you have any comments on this?
For annexation.
What's the annexation?
No comments on annexation.
Annexation only. So we will ask for any questions, concerns from the commission. Okay. But also ask right now for citizen comments. If you have any comments from citizens, you're welcome and encouraged to come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Ryan Lovelace, Civil Site Designer, CSGG. Just here to answer any questions, and I can explain more and tell you more when the PUD item comes up. But I'm here to answer any questions y'all might have on the annexation part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, so any more questions from the commission? So at this point, I'd like to have a motion for the annexation and plan of services for Cathorn Farms located on South Rutland Road.
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion for approval?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Franklin. All in favor of this, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? So approved. Okay. So now we'll go to 6.3. 6.3 is review the preliminary master development plan for Kaufman Farms located on South Rutland Road. Mr. Bowman?
Thank you. All right, you've identified where it is. I think everybody knows here. It's 71.70 acres, and the proposal is for 208 single-family houses, or lots, rather. That is a density of 2.9 units an acre, which is RS15. It's in line with that requirement. This is a PUD, so there are some requests from the applicant, deviations from RS15, the standard bulk regulations that are required. And in this instance, this came to us for the tech review meeting a few months ago, and it included 5,000 square foot lots, 6 foot side setbacks versus 10, which is required by RS15. And a 20-foot front setback versus the 30 required by RS15. We had discussed that and thought it was a little overdeveloped for the site, so they've come back with revisions which increase the lot size from 5,000 to 6,000. There's some discrepancies in the materials that you probably viewed. The book and the preliminary plat said two different things. One said 5,000 square feet, one said 6,000. It's been verified that it's 6,000 square feet is the intention. It originally came through with a lot coverage request for 45%. That has also been reduced down to 40%, meaning that much of the lot can be covered with the structure. So those are the big things. Bulk standard. It's 6,000 square feet and a few reductions in setbacks. Front from 30 to 20 and the side from, I believe it's 10 to 6 is what they're asking. There was a couple other variances requested. Probably most notable for this commission is the facade. They are requesting 25% of any facade of the building, up to 25% being a possible use of fiber cement siding. So it's not the 100% brick or stone, but it's 25% allowed per facade, it's written. Initially, when this came through, it had bare bones, minimal amenities. They've essentially added the pool. There's 2 playgrounds, clubhouse, 10-foot wide trail, multi-use trail throughout it. So there is that, and that's 5 acres, I believe, and 7%. It meets the 7% requirement of a PUD for the improved open space. I think we appreciate the applicant's willingness to work with us and increase the lot size, but we still have concerns with the, in this area with the development. Comparable areas down there, to the east is I can take it back to there are areas down there that are zoned RS10 that have 5,000, 6,000 square foot lots, or it's more comparable to the areas zoned RS10 down there with the lot size. Now that being said, there are RS15 areas down there with smaller lots. I think I saw some of the 5,500 square feet. But the 6,000 square feet a lot of those RS10 PUDs down there are more closely, aligned with that 6,000 square feet. So for RS15, that's where we're at. Staff does offer the conditions in the report. Should it move forward with a positive recommendation, I'd like to clarify or add a few of those things if we do it now or later. I don't.
You can go ahead and do that now.
Just on number 2, I'd like to specify that the driveway under planning and zoning, driveway length should be at least 22 feet in order to accommodate a vehicle. Cars 15 feet long, minimally at least. Also, we'd like to see the average lot size because we have the minimum but no average. So, they could all be 6,000 square feet. And there's a cul-de-sac that's in the landscape buffer. I'd like to add that condition as well, that be removed from there. And I believe Public Works has a number of comments as well. I think that's it for planning in the same way. All right, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. I think on our comments that we have on this, we've been working with the applicant for quite some time. I think one of the biggest points that we've been looking at on this is South Rutland Road and how that would be treated with this development. I think there's some care to be taken here. It is a windy road, which has positives and negatives. The feel of the road is a very nice rural characteristic as it is today. There would be some improvements and some slight realignments as part of this project. We're asking that they meet the 30-mile-per-hour design speed and sign it to us. So probably I would say one of the points to look at with this planning commission and moving forward is I believe there might be some requests as far as the driveway locations and how they might pertain to the roadway. Those would be the variances as far as the street-facing garages for the access streets, as well as the variance from the 10-foot setback where they would have those. Now, so typically our design standards cross over into the roadway standards then, where you look at the access lanes and streets and how those might be. Access streets do not permit, according to our code, street-facing garages. Access lanes do, but they have to be set 10 foot back from the front facade. And now that can include the front porch. And so they are asking for variances on those. Having said that, if there might be some possibilities in there, some things we have classified or Public Works has commented as far as having like comments number 1 and 2 being an access street, if we wanted to say an access street maybe in width only, but the design standards for certain streets might could meet the request of what they're looking at, where we could be okay with going down that path. Also, offsite improvements here. This is this development obviously is the scope of the traffic study did include the intersection farther to the north. That would be at Providence Trail and South Rutland Road, which is a 3-leg intersection. We do have some improvements noted in comment number 14, which would really add a lot of turn lanes at that intersection. I know the traffic study didn't necessarily capture some of the problems that we have at school pickup times and school drop-off times as well as the morning, but mostly pickup times, where I do know that there's pretty significant amount of queuing that spills back to South Rutland and can really affect this intersection. And so some of the, really the major concerns we had there at that intersection, we're trying to make it function in a much better fashion. Now, with that, we were a little bit remiss in noting we usually recommend a CO with offsite improvements, usually having those somewhere, mid-ish type point during the development. So my recommendation with that would be to have those installed by the 100th CO and then withhold building permits thereafter if not completed. We do not like to withhold certificate of occupancies because inevitably somebody's material is in a pod somewhere and they're waiting for the bank to close. So we want to stay out of that if we can. But that's the long and short of it there. I think,
Is that on one of your points?
What's
The
that?
100th CO?
no, that would be a recommendation to add as a comment to number 14, to have it completed by the 100th CO.
So that would be E.
Yes.
Okay.
I think some of the other things to this, we did take a long look at the active use portion of the site. That is a 10-foot path along South Rutland Road. I know there was some question brought up about bike lanes potentially on South Rutland Road. We looked at the thought there being that we would go with, they are showing a 10-foot path on the southeastern half of the site that's fronting South Rutland Road. And we did make a comment on there to add a multi-use path on the northwest portion of the site. Now that's on comment number 4, and that's just for their property frontage. You see they have parking area over there. They have a trail crossing, which my recommendation with that would also be to provide some calming and appropriate signage there at that crossing across the South Rutland Road. So we would anticipate quite a bit of pedestrian traffic through there. And of course, it is a collector roadway, so we want to make that a safe crossing. So in lieu of course, they're showing sidewalks along South Rutland Road, revising that to be the 10-foot path. So at least you have some connectivity in there, potential for increased paths connecting in the future as time goes on. So that's the long and short of it from our side. Happy to answer any questions.
Is that calming feature listed somewhere?
No, we did not list that. If you would wish to spell that out a little bit more clearly, I would definitely recommend doing so. To add, I would probably go something like a raised crosswalk, or you could potentially go with speed humps or speed tables on either end of the crosswalk. I've seen that used as well for greenways across a roadway of this nature, to put something on either end. That way they're not slowing at the crosswalk. They have to slow immediately before. And you have it before and you have it after, so you can't speed through. So that's another option as well.
Where would you put that recommendation item?
It might be able to be used as its own standalone comment.
So basically work with staff on traffic calming features around the greenway.
Yes.
Were there any other things that you mentioned that are not listed in any of your comments?
No, everything else has been captured. We try to capture everything. Of course, the most significant offsite work is going to be comment number 14. I know I spoke some with Ryan, the engineer representative for the project. I think there is some concern over right-of-way availability at that intersection. And we would work with them on design to try to maintain, to keep that within the right-of-way. But if not, then having it at the 100th CO would give them time to be able to work out any right-of-way acquisition that might be necessary.
So commission, any questions for staff?
I got a couple.
Okay.
Andy, there's several lots that have 15, 20% slopes on them.
Mhm.
And some of them that I'm kind of concerned about are 199, 200, 201 over on page C1.02. They're in a cul-de-sac, but I'm wondering what that looks like, because on these little 6,000, 7,000 square foot lots or whatever they are, when you got 20 feet of fall front to back on a lot like that, you almost have to have a driveway about 3 times the ascension of Monteagle Mountain. And then you have to go horizontal even at the cul-de-sac and then at your garage. So you've got a couple of oil pan damaging spots there, trying to make those breaks. The other concern I got, I guess, is there's quite a few of them with 15 feet fall across them. And again, 15 feet across a lot's not a lot of, it's not terrible if you've got a decent sized lot, but if you got a 6,000 square foot lot, you know, it's almost like putting a nickel on its edge and letting it stand up. Just, it almost will. So I guess my concern is there any sort of engineering that staff is going to do on these individual lots? I mean, have you asked, or should we ask, to do an engineer site study on these 20 or 15, anything over a 15% grade, I would think, needs to be looked at. I hate to be on Facebook with one of those driveways where, you know, you see the photos. It looks like this neighborhood could have some.
Yes, and so our code speaks to that. I believe it's 18 and up percent slopes. Basically, there's a criteria where you can do the 18, and then you have the 20%. So you can disturb the 20% slopes. But what our code speaks to, and what we try to hit on comment number 6, is that you cannot put any of that existing 20% slope. You can flatten it out as much as you can. You can take it from a 20% slope to a 10% slope, and you can sell that as part of a lot. But we do not want to see that go into a building envelope, because as part of that, generally in those kinds of situations, you're talking a lot of times about a fill situation. You could be cutting the earth, but if you are filling the earth, then it's definitely not going to be as naturally stable as soil that's been sitting there for, you know, a long time, thousands of years, that is compacted and as stable generally as it's going to be. So we want to see in those kinds of situations. Now, again, having said that, these are 5-foot contours. This is a GIS map. This is a flown aerial. This is not anything. This is more, I guess, general in nature. It's not anything that would be overly specific at this point. I would dare say, I'd have Brian speak for sure, but field survey out here is going to be something that they're going to have to do. And when we get to the FMDP stage, that comment number 6 really comes into play when we start looking at the FMDPs on these. And I know Triple Crown's a great example where we looked at that, and at the FMDP, it really destroyed a lot of the lots out there. Nicholsville had a few as well that really harmed the building envelope on some lots as well when we got to the FMDP level. So we want to make sure that it's in there. I'm glad that we got it captured in here and it's illustrated. There's probably going to be some variation in that area, but we just want to make sure that if it's a 20% slope today, we do not want it within a building envelope when it's constructed.
One of my fears about this is sort of like what we have with Triple Crown. If we approve it and it goes forward and there's a first and a last phase, and you approve 200 lots of density and everything's going along just fine, and then you get to the last of it and you find out that you can't actually do what you originally thought because of these type of things. The notion is that we were approved for 200 homes or whatever, and therefore you should compress the density even further so we can obtain it. And I would just like to make sure that this doesn't happen here on the front end, because this one looks ripe for that kind of conflict on down the road, because our engineer is telling us that this GIS data is iffy. It may not be exactly 20, or I don't know, but if it is, or even worse, it could be just as bad the other side, I guess, right? It could be more than 20%, right? And so when they're not going to know until they get out there with bulldozers. So they come out here and find out their last section, they were supposed to get 40 homes out of it, and they can't even get 20. Is this board going to be willing to go down to 3,500 square foot lots? to get to 200. I mean, that's the kind of thing we're looking at when we're dealing with these slopes. So I just want to make sure that we capture this going forward and we don't get into that same discussion. I don't like to be the bad guy all the time, but slopes are hard when you've got little bitty lots.
That's good.
Yeah, we ran into that. So what would your thoughts be around that, Mr. Franklin? That they'd be-
My memory, I'm getting older, and so Jennifer has corrected me that I once thought that we used to have charts on our preliminary master development plans, and she assures me we didn't. And I'll defer to her, because she probably knows. But to chart the estimates of these lots would be nice. I know they do appear on the final master development plan. They always do. And plats, but I mean, can we get them on final master development plan to see how close to, and I guess, we're just gonna have to, if this thing moves forward, we're gonna have to capture that there's no notion that we owe 200 homes of density on a preliminary master development plan if they can't reach this estimate, because I mean, it's hard enough for me to vote for something that goes down to 6,000 square foot lots when you're going to put probably a 3,500 square foot house on it and barely get the cars to get in and out of the driveway. And you're getting down to a path around the house left of growing grass anyway. So I just don't want that to happen moving forward. Anybody can help me do this when we get time to approve. That's my big fear of this is the nature of and it's not that bad in the middle of up on the top of this thing, and down at the bottom is where all the slopes seem to be. It's not 80% of the development I'm talking about. It's probably more like 15 or 20%. The development has some pretty iffy slopes.
So could we put in some requirements such as the minimum frontage of the lots that I think representation, Ron, what was we was talking out in the hall, what was the breakout of the various lots? You said that they were from 65.
Yeah, this Ryan Lovelace, Civil Site. Thank you for having me tonight. Yeah, to answer your question, the two lot sizes that we're planning on right now is 66 foot wide and 72 foot wide. That's what you see in the neighboring Barrett Farms. That's the same lot size if you drive through there. That's the plan for now. And again, I appreciate staff. We've been working on this seems like since before Christmas, working on this to get to this point. So it's been a long time. And if I may, I would love to kind of tell you guys about the whole project if I could. And then Bobby, I can come back and explain and talk about that subject too, if that's okay. If
Sure.
I may do that. This project, of course, was on Rutland Road and two different ponds on Rutland Road. And if you've driven, I know pretty much everybody has Rutland Road, there's 2 or 3 hairpin turns. I mean, they're dangerous and they're made for horses. They're not made for cars today. And it's just they're dangerous today. And one of the best things about this development, I would say, is we're planning to fix those curves. Like Andy said, fix them to a 30 mile per hour speed limit. So 3 of those curves are getting fixed out there, and we're fixing a dangerous situation. Also, Rutland Road is today just it was a county road not 2 years ago, so it's just your standard ditches on both sides. And we're putting curb and gutter on both sides for the entire stretch. So if you know where the old White House is, up on the hill, right at the southern end of Del Webb, that old White House, all the way down to the southern bend, so it'll be the southern end of that lake that's out there. All that will be improved to curb and gutter on both sides. We're also putting a 10-foot trail, that whole stretch, from the southern end of the lake, where that last 90-degree turn is that we're fixing, a 10-foot trail. It runs all the way through our down Rutland Road, all the way up to the White House. And then it also connects to Providence Landing sidewalk. And then also at the southern end, it connects to what Baird Farms is about to build as far as sidewalks on Rutland Road, the east-west part of Rutland Road. So this is going to open up a huge loop for walkability in this area. I mean, you can walk from Providence, you walk all the way down Rutland Road, walk all the way over to Baird Farms entrance, where it's going to tie into Rutland Road, and you can go right back up Barrett Farms to Providence Trail. So it just opens up a huge corridor for walkability, and it just is exciting. It'll look different. I mean, it'll look improved. There'll be new asphalt out there, curb and gutter. And also, as you're driving down through here, we have 208 lots, but we also have 2 great amenities. If you look on the northern part, we have a playground, we have a pool, we have a pool house, along with a parking lot there. And on the southern end, we have a playground also. So that's the southern part. Playground, a fire pit, and a community garden. So 2 different areas for 2 different types of people. You can do the formal pool and pool house area, or you go to the southern end where it's more of a outdoorsy feel with a fire pit and a community garden feel, more getting back to nature type of park. So 2 great park areas. And again, that whole 10-foot trail, if you have your pattern book, which is what Bobby's looking at there, if you flip to page 8, you'll see the red highlighted line in there. That's the 10-foot trail. And you can see how it interconnects not only just all of Providence and everything else around it, but it interconnects into our different park areas also and into the internal sidewalks. Because don't forget, there are sidewalks on both sides of the road, on every road in the subdivision. Y'all's standards now are curb and gutter. Andy, what are those, 5-footers or 6-footers now? 5-footers? Sidewalks? 5-foot sidewalks on all roads. So great walkability in this subdivision. We also have, if you look, we have a 40-foot buffer along Rutland Road. So our lot line, not the house, but the lot line is at least 40 foot off Rutland Road. I know we've heard and we've talked about before, some of these lots get right up against the road. And staff asked us for the 40 foot, and we agree with them. That's a great addition to this plan, that 40-foot buffer for any lot along Rutland Road. And remember, these houses are even pushed further off, so you're 70, 80 foot off the road with the house. A couple other things, if you would. I'd like for you to flip over to page 10 of the pattern book. This is the typical house look and feel that we're going for. I'll talk about the variances in a second, but that look, and then also if you flip to page 11, these are the houses that we are proposing. These houses are very similar to what you see in Walton's Grove, what you see in Winfield, Baird Farms, up there in Jackson Hills and Nichols Vale. These are the similar homes because that was the standard for a long time, and this new standard for all brick and stone is nice, but the variety is what we're missing, and that's what we're trying to achieve. If you look at the pictures on page 11, we still have a lot of brick and stone, but we have that 25% where we could do some hardy board, some stucco, some different feels, and not just be an all brick and stone look. I think that architectural variety is key to what makes the subdivision look neat and what makes the city look neat. So that's why we're asking for the 25%. These pictures on page 11 shows that 25% request for that variance. Also on that page 11, if you look at the garages, the current requirements that we're asking for variances, your frontage of garages have to be 10 foot behind the front porch, 10 foot behind the front porch. And if you look at the upper right house on page 11, we couldn't build that. And that's a pretty standard house you see in Mount Juliet and all over Middle Tennessee. It's still, in my opinion, a beautiful house. There's nothing wrong with it. But that recess, every house, if it's front entry, has to have a 10-foot recess. And I think, again, that architectural variety is what we're going to be missing if we don't get a variance on being able to push the house a little bit in front. Sometimes the house is in the same face as the front of the house. Sometimes the garage is pushed back, but we need that architectural variety again. And then the last variance is the requirement to have all side entry garages or alley loaded garages. on Access Street and Collector Roads. We would like the ability to do, again, these houses where our garages look like page 11, which is standard we see in most all subdivisions in the Mount Juliet area where they're not side entry. And the side entry, just so y'all know, side entry garages require at least a 90-foot wide lot. So the lots become really, really wide to do a side entry. And we want to keep that same look of the Bear Farms where it's that 66 to 72-foot wide look. Again, those are all front entry. And we'd like to have that variance if we could. We did change our lot size to 6,000. We will do the average lot size request before the VOC meeting. And then also the slopes, Bobby, that you were talking about. Like Andy was saying, we have to do a critical lot plan later on during the process. The FMDP, we will do a full existing contour map. We'll fly, we'll know exactly what the contours are. So at that point, when we come back to you, staff and then your guys' requirements don't allow us to have steep slopes in the house footprints. So like you said on Triple Crown and some other projects, we have to adjust lots and sometimes just drop off lots. It seems to me that it's been rare that we ever get to the final lot count. We always lose lots between the preliminary PUD and the final PUD. It's just because we just get more data, we get more information, and we still have to come in front of you to ask permission. So if our lot sizes are a minimum of 6,000, an average of, let's say, 7,500, we still have to meet that when we come in front of you with the FMDP. So we have a whole nother step, and we'll have better information. This site rolls pretty nice. It's one of the better, probably one of the best sites I've seen from a rolling hill standpoint, not steep like Triple Crown. It's a nice site. That's why you see only one small pocket of those type of slopes. But again, we'll further refine that in the next step of the FMDP. And at that step, you guys can determine with us and staff, does this meet the intent and the requirements of the preliminary PUD? But I appreciate staff. I appreciate y'all's time. We worked a long time on this, and I think we've addressed all the comments, and we agree with them, and just ask for your blessing on the variances we're asking, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
So Bobby, going back to your question about the slopes, what would you think about if he said that half of the slopes width, half of the homes are going to be 66 feet wide and half are 72 feet wide? Then if we kept it at that, saying that you'd have to have at least half 66 feet wide and half 72 feet wide, and if you lost lots, they can't come back and they can't say, well, you've approved us for 208. And so we're able to now decrease the lot size because we had 208.
That might be one way to address it. I do have a question for him, why he's up there. And you don't see this anymore. I know it's expensive to do, but on some of these lots like this, we don't have much of them in Mount Juliet anymore, but some of these lots look like they make great basement type lots. I mean, they're almost begging to be that. You could, instead of flattening the whole thing out, just carve a piece of it out, and they even drain to the low side too. Looks like you have several that could be that. Is that something?
And I moved here 20 years ago from Denver, and every house was a basement in Denver. It was just normal. Here, basements are very abnormal. It's not so much the rock or the gradient or slopes. They can't sell them. That extra square footage that they put in the basement, they can't make their money back out of it. It's a loss.
Really?
So it's not a positive. The basement's a negative on the home building side. It's crazy, I know. But that's why you don't see a lot of basements in Middle Tennessee.
I guess I'm just getting old.
I'd rather have a basement.
There's still people that want basement houses. And with the tornadoes that come through, when I was building years ago, I would build those porches so that you could go in them for tornadoes. And I really think that there's a need and there's a want for basement homes in Mount Juliet.
Okay.
And matter of fact, most of the houses I built years ago were basement houses. Just FYI.
So I'll call for citizen comments and then we'll also go back to other comments from the commission. So at this point, I'd like to ask for additional citizen comments on this piece of the agenda. Citizens are welcome and encouraged to speak. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, Richard Lyons, 1041 South Rutland, right around the subdivision of Cawthon. Just had a question for you, sir. You said, and hope I didn't understand this because I did look at the plans, but are you saying you're going to put sidewalks on both sides of Rutland Road, including through the front of our land?
Where's your house, where the lake is?
Yes, the lake house.
We're not putting a sidewalk along your frontage, no.
Okay,
Just our side,
good.
along your lake property. Your property where the lake is.
But the opposite side of the street.
Yes, but it's.
Yeah,
it's on
that's
our
what
side.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And that's great. It sounded like you were saying,
No,
maybe
sorry.
you were talking about the gutters and other things, but I thought you included the sidewalks on that. Okay, because additional walking, in front on my property would not be something that I would necessarily want. Okay, thank you.
And if I may say that in the microphone, I'm sorry. So the 10-foot trails on our side of the road for the whole stretch of this project, and along his property where the lake property is, there is no sidewalk along that lake property. It's noted in our detail on the left side of, I think it's C100. It specifically talks about that. Thank you.
Any other citizens who would like to comment on this piece of the agenda? Okay. Are there any other questions, discussion items from the commission?
I've got one for Andy. Is on number 4, the variance to allow maximum road grade of 10%. Are you okay with that? I know, or not?
We have allowed that in the past. I believe Nicholsville might have that. We haven't analyzed those specific locations.
That's
Ryan,
the collector road extension coming out of Winfield.
okay,
That's the variance we're talking about where it heads off to Covey Rise.
okay.
Just that
Oh,
one road, that's part of your master plan.
Gotcha.
Just that one road.
And that's just to reach tie down correctly.
Okay. It'd be very, it's not easy,
Yeah, we, do you know what percentage that's looking to be on the road grade?
10.
10, right at 10? Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
So Ron, I have a couple questions. If we look on C 1.00,
Yes.
in the north section, which faces Baird Farms, there is a small access road that leads into Baird Farms, but you have to go through a lot to get into Baird Farms. Can you explain this to me?
Yeah, from a historical standpoint, that there was a stub road there at one time, back in the preliminary PUD stage of old Bear Farms. It was taken away and a house was put there. That part is under construction right now. There's still discussions with the Jones Company Jones Company owns Bear Farms, and of course this is CPS with 2 different groups. But there's discussions with the Jones Company on the possibility of getting rid of a house and putting a road there. But as far as this PUD goes, we wanted the ability to have a stub there. But that discussion with the Jones Company is still outstanding. So I don't have an answer for you on that yet. We will, during the VOC process, have a better answer for you on that. But we do want to have that stub road there as part of this PUD for now. And we'll have a better answer in the VOC.
So, we do like connectivity, and
Yes.
so connectivity through Baird Farms would be nice. So that's something you'll be working on?
Yep.
The other question I have is just south of that, there's a stub road that leads into some vacant property near the lake. Is this lake and the vacant property, is that part of this development or the exit?
Not at all. That's your property, right? Yeah, it's not part of our property at all. That and the lake are all one property in
I
essence.
see.
It shows the property line in there, but it's all his.
3 parcels, 23 acres.
Okay.
Nice.
Let's see, the question I have is about the cemetery. So I did not see anything in your notes about how that cemetery will be fenced off or separated and who's going to keep up with the maintenance of that cemetery. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, currently, is there a fence around it today, Frank? Yeah, there's a fence today, yes.
There's a fence around the property today, and our contract, Frank Horton with CTS Land, our contract with the landowner says that we will, the HOA will perpetually maintain that fence and the grounds on the cemetery. We're also committed to adding a couple of parking stalls right there so that family members can visit at the times that they want to.
So what happens if the HOA goes out of existence or that the,
Well, we generally set up our HOA so that there's enough money. I've never been involved with an HOA that went out of existence. We have a 20-year maintenance plan for resurfacing the pool, resurfacing the cabana, and the resurfacing of the trail, and the cemetery will be part of that. It's a plan that figures out just when things will most likely need to be replaced, and you put money in reserve for those items in the future.
very good, okay.
Commissioner, state law requires the landowner to maintain. So
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah.
The other question I have is lots 144 and 145, and this is in the south section, and it is on the southwest side of, looks like South Rutland Road. There are only 2 houses that are just kind of outside of that. Can you?
Yeah, those are actually our 2 side entry garage houses. That's a collector road. And that road down there, Providence J, is the same road that comes from through Winfield, through Harrington, it's going to go down Rutland Road and this road. So I mean, it's a collector road. So those 2 lots are side entry garages.
They look kind of dangerous to me. Just on the curve and somebody trying to come into your house. Just looks like the entrance into those 2 homes would be, even if they're, if they're 20 feet setbacks, you're going to be like, so somebody's on your tail, you're going to be like coming in and automatically stopping. And so.
I think this would be no different than any other collector road we have in all our subdivisions. It's still the same collector road and the same speed limits that the city requires, but we also having a stop sign down at the entrance where the curve is taken out. I'm sure we're going to have a 3-way stop there. I'll leave that up to Andy, but that 3-way stop would slow anybody coming down through there because we don't want these to be 55-mile-per-hour roads, because they will be if you don't stop them.
So that'll be a 3-way stop, Andy?
Given the high nature of the turning volume that you're probably going to have there, especially once this is constructed, I would definitely recommend that. We can analyze it in the future if it's, traffic patterns change, but I would say in our construction review, I would make that a comment.
Do you see any safety issues of getting in and out of the driveway of those 2 homes?
As long as we have the appropriate driveway lengths, and I believe if they are side entry, side or rear garages with the appropriate driveways in there, appropriate turnaround areas, I believe it should be okay.
It's a pretty steep hill.
It is. It's a grade right there. I think sight distance could be a little bit of a concern. If you wanted to look at something else there, increased setback on those 2 lots might be a good option. to try to push the houses a little bit farther away, increase that sight distance. Because you are inside edge of a curve, and obviously, as we talked, we're looking at a relatively steep grade there, about 10%. So even if somebody does stop at a three-way stop there, going downhill, acceleration rate put them going relatively quick in a short period of time. So believe, you could look at some things such as setback, driveway locations, could play a factor. 145, I'd probably push it a little bit farther away from that road access street there. Alternately, if you had some shared drive with those two, that was to come out maybe at a different location, you could try something like that. Looks to be with a buffer in there, a little bit of room. Obviously, you have plenty of room road frontage, but depth, you don't necessarily have as much room. So there could be a couple other options in there. I'd say they're relatively limited in what they can do, but there's a couple ways of trying to make it safer.
What about a traffic calming initiative up going, I guess that would be going west before you got to the.
Right. You could look at, what if you did something on the level of a raised crosswalk right there? You have those two homes. Obviously, you want to try to provide them a means to get into the development if they wanted to walk. I mean, I'd say the most obvious draw for them is to go up to that South Rutland Road intersection and go up to a playground or go on up to the pool if they wanted to walk or bike that way. But I think it would be good. You can have some kind of a traffic calming element there included at that intersection. A raised crosswalk there could be a good option.
Yeah, because if someone doesn't know this road, like I've made the comment, when I go down it, I don't go down it very often, and I wish I hadn't. There could be some speed that would be picked up, and I think it could very much, could save a life or
I
something.
think it would increase the livability of those homes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The second to last question. You're comparing Catherine Farms to Baird Farms. And one of the things about Baird Farms is they have several homes that have 3-car garages. Looking at page 11 on your plan book, I only see 2-car garages. Are there plans to put in 3-car garages in any of your plans?
That option's always there. I mean, all builders have an option for a 3rd-car garage. One is the people want to pay for it, and 2 doesn't fit. And there was no intentions on Baird Farms to have a 3rd-car garage with our lot sizes, but there were certain areas that it fit. So that option's there, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then lastly, looking at the south section, your South Park amenity area, you probably have 100 homes in the south section, but I believe you have, 4 parking places for your South Park amenity area?
So we're trying to promote walkability. We did not even want the parking lot, but I know staff wanted it, and we worked with staff to have the parking lot. So I think it was a good compromise to what we have shown. Our feeling is people can park at the northern parking lot and walk to this southern amenity area. But I think the compromise was the 4 parking spaces, and we'd like to keep it at 4 if we can.
You wouldn't be open to increasing that to, instead of having parallel parking, maybe pull-in parking? Maybe
I mean, that's what this body feels. That parking lot is not the end of the world. So, if that's something this body feels that we need a few more parking spaces, we're more than open to do it.
Yeah, I think that you need a little bit more than 4.
I'm sorry, Art, what'd you say?
I think you need more than 4.
Mm-hmm. Any more comments, discussion from the commission on this? Again, this is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commission.
What about at the mail kiosk, just the ability to turn around in that parking area? Like I see a little bit of a pull in, and does that say 16 or 18?
16.
Too young to have high problems like this.
It's worse.
Yeah.
I made a joke and didn't listen to the answer. What was the answer? Was it 16 or 18?
It was 16.
16. So is there any, I know we've had these conversations, these mail kiosks are a pretty relatively new thing, but can somebody explain to me how that functions with it being a one-way in parking lot?
Yeah, so a lot of times what we'll do, and it doesn't show it real well there, but those last two stalls are striped. So in essence, that is the turnaround area for people to get out.
Okay.
Another option here is the mail kiosk maybe moves to the left or the right side of the parking lot. And then it's on the back side of a parking stall. You see that sometimes. So a mail kiosk is, and we'll have a more defined and a better plan when we come to FMDP. We just wanted to show that we have a mail kiosk on the north section and we have a mail kiosk in the south section. We'll work with staff to fine tune that as we do the plan and actually look at true road profiles and grading and parking.
I like the garden idea. I wonder with 200 homes in that garden, who uses that garden? How's that been utilized in other projects you've seen?
Yeah, so a couple different ways. In these subdivisions, the people actually pay a fee. I've seen where the HOA will maintain the beds at the starting, get them prepped, and then each person has their own plot, I guess you say, of the garden, and they maintain that plot. Another option is this becomes more of an HOA garden for people just to use and see and make it more part of just the atmosphere of being out there at the fire pit and seeing a garden that the HOA maybe maintains instead. There's quite a few different options you can do in these community gardens.
Any other comments? Now, there are 5 variance requests here in this. So as we're making our recommendation, I want us to consider these also, if you're in favor or against those. So at this time, I'd like to make a request for a recommendation on this back to the Board of Commissioners. Do I see any requests?
I'll make a motion to send it to the commission, and with those variances, unless we changed one a while ago that I don't remember.
For a positive recommendation. And would this also include the 2 comments from Mr. Barlow, which is, let's see, number 14E, which is completion by the 100th CO. And then number 15, work with staff on a calming device when the Greenway crosses South Rutland. And then also working with staff on increased setbacks or other items on lots 144 and 145. And then increased parking on the South Park. And working with staff on making it easy access for the mail kiosk.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, those are included. And if I may make a comment, it has nothing to do with that. You were talking about the 3-car garages. Those 2 homes may be ideal for that if somebody wanted to do that because they're side entry. That might be a good place for that. So, okay.
If I might, I'd just like to get clarification from their consultant regarding planning condition number 2, the 22-foot driveway. I'm just wondering how they're going to accomplish that with a 20-foot front setback request and a variance to the 10-foot behind the porch garage request.
Yeah, definitely going to meet the 22-foot requirement. The house simply has to go back 2 feet, to answer your question. That garage door has to be 22 foot. We're not asking for that variance. So that front facade will move back and forth as necessary to meet the 22 foot requirement.
So I have a positive recommendation with staff comments and the additional comments that we added. Do I see a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Franklin. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Abstentions. So that should have passed. Positive recommendation.
Thank you.
So our next item on the agenda is item 7, final master development plan, preliminary plat. 7.1, review the final master development plan for Bradshaw Farms located on Beckwith Road. 7.2, review the preliminary master plat for Bradshaw Farms located on Beckwith Road. If I see no objections, could we hear both of these together? Okay, no objections, so we'll hear both 7.1 and 7.2 together. Ms. Hamlin,
Thank
do you have any comments on this?
Do you want to give a second for them to scoot out? Thank you. As you stated, this is for phase 1 of Bradshaw Farms. It contains 97 lots on 14.79 acres. This preliminary master development plan for this development was approved in early 2020. Both the preliminary plat shown and the final master development plan are in substantial compliance with that preliminary master development plan, and staff recommends approval with the conditions listed in our staff reports. I did want to update one item. We asked them to pull out the amenity center. It will be completed in phase 1, but we'd like to get a separate site plan submittal for that amenity center. So you'll see it separately, but they still intend to build it, of course, by, I believe, the 75th CO for this
Okay.
development.
And where is that?
The amenity center,
Is this listed in your comments?
it is listed in the staff report.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, yeah, I see that on number 4. Yep, okay. Mr. Barlow, do you have any comments?
I just wanted to make I think a couple of minor adjustments, maybe. One on Public Works comment number 10. We had a little discussion, I think, maybe just trying to sort out with this development, the road pavement sections and how that would work out. And Vanner Road, as it's constructed, was constructed a little bit of a modified residential collector. And we have that as a 1.5 inch surface, 3 inches of binder, and 10 inches of stone. So it's a little bit beefier than like an access street would be. And because we're extending that road, despite the fact that we have some thicker pavement sections where we would have another layer of asphalt in there with our new standards, we are okay with continuing that through this development as part of the extension of Vanner Road. The only thing that we would like to ask as a modification to number 10 is to establish a pavement typical section for the primary route from Vanner to Beckwith Road. And we would work that out with the engineer at the construction plan approval stage to try to establish that. We will discuss that again with future FMDPs as they come through, and we'll probably have a better idea of what we're going to be going with and which roads at that point in time. For this plan, that would be Street A, Street B, and Road A, Road B, and Road C are the 3 primary ones that we want to look at on this. So minor correction of that, but I just want to make sure that we capture that. Also, I know that we had discussed prior As far as the material for the raised crosswalk, which is to be the traffic calming there in Jackson Hills, if you go to sheet C 0.3, it shows that location. Would like to go with a concrete material there, if at all possible, in lieu of the asphalt. Concrete obviously being a more durable material, something that can last longer. I will anticipate some construction issues because we are retrofitting an existing road. So do anticipate some construction issues. We do have multiple ways in and out of the subdivision. So if we had to do some detours while this is being worked on, this is a possibility. Additionally, I know that Jackson Gallagher, who's the Jackson Hills HOA president, I know I've talked with him some about the location. We did look at the location of that. I'm trying to see if we could go at the crosswalk on the east side there of that intersection, which would be more logical from a flow standpoint. However, we do have some drainage issues there. You can actually see in the survey there's 2 drains. That is a low point in the roadway. If we have the raised crosswalk right there, it could potentially have an impact on the drainage. The other option is to push it farther east. However, do that, you're starting to not have your traffic calming elements as equidistant. We could, we're okay with that, but it might be something that we could look at a little bit more with their engineer to try to define those locations more clearly. We do want to avoid that. I think we want to have some time to be able to look at that with their engineer. We need to make sure that we're not causing any negative impacts on roadway drainage for sure. So it could be a possibility we could shift that location, but we want to make sure that we're not impacting that drainage first. That's first and foremost. So those are my only minor comments on that. I do want to bring to your attention the comment 6A. So Vanner Road has been designed and is constructed, it's just not striped, to have 4-foot bike lanes on both sides. Now, their plan for improvements there, which is on sheet C 0.3, shows, which this is part of the PUD requirement, to add another lane at that approach to Golden Bear Gateway. That's to help improve traffic flow operations, especially in morning school time. But having that in there and having the bike lane will require an impact to the center island and will require an impact to the Jackson Hills Monument sign. That's the only way to do that and maintain the improvements within the existing right-of-way. Otherwise, you're getting out of the right-of-way and you're causing some more significant impacts. Constructability might be a major concern. Getting into the sign, the monument wall on the north side of the intersection would probably occur, and you'd have to modify the signal pole locations. So it really, to push the improvements any farther north than what they have proposed is going to cause some major impacts, more impacts than they're worth, to be honest with you. So while we have the comment in there to have the 4-foot bike lanes, I know that it's the wish of the Jackson Hills HOA to not have to modify that monument sign in the central island. I will say it is a nice feature coming into the subdivision, so I do respect that. And so we have the comment in there. However, I'd like to have discussion with the Planning Commission on that as far as their thoughts, recommendation. Art, with your participation with the BPAC, value that input as well as far as having those be shared bike lanes with the travel lanes. Of course, it is a signalized approach, It's not a fast through approach. So there's some advantage to that. And keeping the context of where you're at here in mind as we think, are the improvements, can they fit? What kind of undue impact might they be causing? So while the comment is there, we have it there for consistency's sake, but it is worth the discussion. Not going to hurt my feelings if you say to take that off and to go with the shared lanes as is illustrated on sheet C 0.3.
How long would that share lane be?
It would only last, if you look at their plan, that station probably would need to end at about station probably 0.0 or
Can you tell me where you're looking,
0.00.
Mr. Barlow? I'm sorry. Can you tell me what page you're on?
Oh, I'm sorry, sheet C 0.3. It would end at about station, if you see in the middle there, kind of in the center of the road, that 0 + 00, that's the roadway station, where they begin construction. It would need to end there. You could do it to where there's standards of care where you end the bike lanes, put up a sign, do the striping correctly. And so that would have to be included with that design. So it's not unheard of to end a bike lane and turn it into a turn lane.
So you're saying that the bike lane would be there until you got to that 0.00 station and
That's
then
correct.
it would end. So it's
Mhm.
very short distance,
It is.
considering the impact that it would make to the existing development should we require it.
So how many feet?
About 200 feet, maybe slightly over 200 feet. So
And would that be, I've seen some bike lanes where there are, posts that separate the bike lane from the traffic, or would this be no post and just striping that shows this is a bike lane?
yes, you handle that by adding, it's a specialized type of marking on the pavement. It's called a sharrow. It's the term for it. Maybe it's not a technical term, but it's the common term for it. And
Similar to Mount Juliet
yeah.
Road.
Well, we have, I'm trying to think, Metro Nashville does have a lot of those types of
Old Hickory
conditions.
Boulevard.
Yes, it's very common to have that. Basically, it's signifying to a roadway user that a bicycle user can share their lane completely, which they're legally allowed to do. It's just trying to indicate that to the roadway user. I don't really, and with this being a residential neighborhood, the people who are going to be using these roads are going to be using them daily. I think if you have that down there, people, you're not going to have a significant amount of bike traffic, but it's good enough to where it's going to show to those users that when there is a bicyclist present, that they do have that right. It's more just a reminder than anything.
There is a greenway, which is, kind of runs along there.
Very good point.
Could
Yes.
you divert the bike traffic to that greenway and around?
It would probably depend on which way they were wanting to go. We do have bike lanes on Golden Bear Gateway today. When we do the widening on Golden Bear Gateway, we will have those 10-foot multi-use paths. We're not going with bike lanes in this area. We are going to have those multi-use 10-foot wide, basically a greenway path on both sides of the road. And that's to try to promote the users, because the majority of your bicycle users are not your advanced riders who want to be riding in the road. You do have those folks. They are present. We have quite a few around the area, but that's not the majority of your people. People who are going to be using that are going to be families. Maybe people who want to ride somewhere just for a quick trip. An average rider is probably not going to want to be in a bike lane necessarily. But they would be using a shared path on the side of the road that's separated from the roadway with a grass strip. So they would feel more comfortable with that. And so we prefer to see those. So you will have that there. So there's that connection point on Golden Bear Gateway. We do have the Greenway. So your recreational users, if they wish to avoid this whatsoever, they can. We do have connection points within the development within Jackson Hills to go from the roadway network to the greenway.
Mhm.
So there, I believe we have 2 or 3 connection points where they're able to do that. And so there is an alternate route that can be used as well for more, if somebody's wanting to go for more of a recreational use. So that or other internal streets within the development. And this is the only road in the development that does have marked bike lanes. All other streets obviously are smaller classification roadways, and they will not have any marked bike lanes on them. But you will see bicyclists using those roads as well.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to take citizen comments. All citizens are welcome and encouraged to speak. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. You can speak up to 3 minutes. So I don't see any citizens commenting, so we'll open it up to Planning Commission. What kind of discussion, questions, items do you have for staff or representation? What about this bike lane that Mr. Barlow is talking about? Do you have any thoughts about what's the best alternative for that?
Well, if we don't put it where it is, I mean, where it's shared, then they're gonna have to maybe tear down their sign.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's 200 feet. I don't think that's too excessive.
I agree with Mr. Giles, even though I don't get to vote.
Okay. Any other comments on this then? This is item for approval. So at this, Jim,
Well, it's, I really do appreciate the submittal. The submittal was very good, whoever did this. Very specific, well organized. We don't always get those, but I'd just like to make that comment. Thank you.
very good.
We appreciated it too.
Very good. So at this point, I'd like to see if there's a motion on this.
Motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion approved. A second?
Second.
Is that with the note of the signage?
Yes. Note the signage. Okay, have a second. So all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Same sign. Abstentions. So approved.
Is that removing the bike lane there? Requirement is conditioned.
What was your comment about the sign?
The shared bike lane, that's what
To
you were.
protect the sign.
You're,
Protect the sign.
yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So then we have one more item on the agenda. This is for item 8, other business. We're going to be holding our annual meeting for election of chairman and vice chairman tonight. And so we'll open up and ask for any nominations for chairman. I know that Luke's not here, but he has agreed, so wish of the body, for him to serve for another year. So I'm asking for nominations for chairman of the Mount Juliet Municipal and Regional Planning Commission.
You said he is interested in
He
doing
is.
that again?
Yes.
I'll nominate Luke again.
Okay, I have a nomination for Luke Winchester as chairman. Any other nominations?
Move nominations.
I'm sorry?
I move that we cease nominations.
Okay, that's what I need to have. We have a movement to cease nominations. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, Rebecca, a second. All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Abstentions? Okay. So now we will vote on Luke Winchester as chairman of the Mount Juliet Regional Municipal and Regional Planning Commission. All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Those that oppose, say no. Abstentions? So approved. Luke Winchester will be our chairman for Mount Juliet Municipal and Regional Planning Commission. Next, we're on a vote for vice chairman. So do we have any nominations for vice chairman of the Mount Juliet Municipal and Regional?
I would like to nominate Chuck Turner.
Okay, nomination for Chuck Turner. Any other nominations? So I'll make a motion to cease nominations. Do we have that?
I do.
Okay,
Second.
Mr. Raymond and Mr. Parnell second that. Okay. All in favor of ceasing nominations for vice chairman, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Abstentions? Now we'll vote on Chuck Turner for vice chairman of the municipal and regional planning.
Does he need to leave the room where y'all talking?
All in favor, say aye, raising your right hand.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions? So approved. So Chuck Turner.
You vote against yourself.
I saw I had a majority, so I was okay. So Chuck Turner is the vice president of Juliet Municipal and Regional Planning Commission. So the last item on the agenda is to adjourn. Do I see a motion for adjournment? All right. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Christian. Okay. So all in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Those opposed, no. Abstentions? So approved.
Better be careful, you did a good job. It's a heartbeat away there.